Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker and Scott Kirshner. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. 419-794-3030, online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. If you missed the first half of the show or previous editions of the show and you want to catch up, real easy to find. You can go on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you consume your media. Search for America's Retirement Headquarters. All those previous editions up there for you on demand at your leisure. So as you said at the beginning of the show, Nolan, here it is, the fall weather. We're enjoying it, maybe not so successfully when it comes to fishing, but we're all enjoying autumn. But the season also brings driving hazards like rain and wet leaves, deer, earlier sunsets, and increased school bus activity. So what are the top hazards that can challenge a retirement plan as people enter into the autumn of their working career? See what I did there? And how can you help navigate around them?
There's definitely so many different risks, I think, to take a look at for people that are, moving into retirement time, and, some good ideas and strategies on how to kind of try to address some of those. One of probably the biggest one that's out there is what I would refer to as longevity risk.
Sure, absolutely.
In so many surveys that are out there, one of the biggest fears that a retiree has is outliving their income. And, that really makes sense when you think about it. Nobody's going to be able to predict how long you're going to be able to live. People at the age 65 have a high probability of spending 20 plus years in retirement time. And, as the lifespan continues to increase, some are going to spend more time in retirement than they spent working. In the good old days, if I go back to like my grandparents' generation, what usually happened is you went and you worked for a company, and then you had a strong pension that provided a solid, reliable income that would normally cover both like the husband and spouse forever. And if they saved a little bit of money and they had some money for some fun stuff like vacations and travel, life was good.
Right.
And, being that I'm 46, from my generation and younger, what's happened is, pensions have gone by the wayside. And nowadays you have to save for yourself and build your own retirement. And that's what creates a lot of uncertainty. And then you have years like today or this year where the market has been a little bit, crazy, and people are looking at their values of their 401ks and saying, wow, my 401k is now a 201k. Right. And they're like, do I have enough to address that longevity risk? There is ways to address it. So there are what are called annuity contracts. Again, annuity, there can be good and bad, but annuities are ways to address longevity. There's certain types of an annuity that can provide a lifetime of income, all set up for different benefits. Number two, probably the biggest number two that's going on this year is inflation. We didn't really have inflation as a hot topic until this year, and now we've seen inflation roar back, and it really can erode your savings and impact your lifestyle. The longer you spend in retirement, the greater its potential impact. It's important to develop an income strategy that can outpace inflation and keep up with the increasing cost of goods and services. And I know, Scott, inflation has been something that seems like your field has had a lot because it seems to me like healthcare costs year after year have gone up. But even more so this year with retirees, they have a fixed income, and now grocery costs are higher, energy costs are higher. I heard the cost of heating your home is going to go up dramatically this winter too. So inflation is another big impact.
Yeah, it really hits all aspects of life. I had a car that my truck went back on lease here, and I was in the market for a new vehicle, and the exact same thing I had 2 years later has a $6,000 higher price tag to it. And that really impacts a lot of people, because even whether it's healthcare, whether it's gas, whether it's food, I heard a report where somebody was saying, yes, we still can afford to go to the grocery store, but it has drastically impacted, our monthly food or shopping list and that cost. Healthcare is another one of those. It's not immune to these high costs. These companies, the cost of doing business in general, but when you look at x-rays and you look at MRIs and you go to the doctor and the supplies, because you have to remember, when you go to the doctor and they're giving a shot, or they're doing drawn blood, or anything that they're doing, the supplies that they're using are costing them far more. So what are they going to do to recoup some of that increased cost to them is to increase the cost to you. If you don't have the right plan and you have out-of-pocket expenses like, to cover all of these items, you're going to be paying more for your healthcare cost as well. So nothing's really immune to the inflation cost.
It really does. It all adds up. And I'd say the other big risk for retirees is withdrawal strategy. Looking at the rate at which you draw down your savings and investments to pay for, your current living expenses in retirement can play a critical role in determining how long your income's going to last. A retiree has to figure out, do I withdraw from my taxable accounts first? Do I take from my tax deferred accounts? Do I take from my Roth IRA? And just as you pointed out, the decision that you make on that not only impacts how long those accounts last, it impacts things like what your healthcare expenses and costs are going to be. The golden rule, taking out 4% a year as a safe withdrawal rate, is what's been around for a long time. Is that true in a market like today? If you have all of your money in the market and your stock and bond portfolio are both down this year, you're forced to sell in a declining market. You're actually accelerating the risk of outliving your money. So figuring out, with your withdrawal strategy, and that's quite frankly why we've created what I call the independent income system. So the independent income system is our belief and methodology of how to take and address the risk associated with retirement and develop a plan that somebody that's close to or in retirement time can finally understand. Developing a purpose for how to have enough reliable income, what type of investments might be the right ones to look at for current income, how to put money aside for designed to give you pay raise, and what type of accounts are best for that. What do you do for your long-term care? And how do you make your lazy assets get up and go to work every day if you're going to be retired, not going to work, and then using that to put a shield over top of your assets so if you have some type of long-term care, then you can avoid having your life savings wiped out because of an unexpected healthcare crisis. And finally, looking at efficiently planning your estate and kind of putting it all together. Again, that's our process. It's called the independent income system. If you want to know more about the threats and opportunities that are facing today's retirees, I'd encourage you just Google independent income system, or if you're watching this video, click on the link below. We'll give you a direct link to that video. But the independent income system, if you Google that, we'll talk more about what those threats and opportunities are with some good strategies on what you can do right now with getting your plan updated for this time frame and this economy.
So Nolan, I do have a question for you, because we talk a lot about Social Security and what's the best time to draw Social Security. And I know that one of the questions is always, do you have good genes, right? How long did mom and dad live? Do you have a good chance to outlive taking it early? And, do you do that when you sit down with a client to figure out their retirement planning for their investments? Circling back to number one on your list, there was longevity. Do you look at that as well? I mean, if they've got, grandma and mom and dad and grandpa all live to be in their mid-90s, that's got to come into play too when you sit down with the client. Is that right?
I do. I think that's, a really important question. I talk to people when they come into my office all the time. And, what sometimes I'll hear the guy say, hey, nobody in my family lived past age 75, so I'm just going to take it while I can. The challenge is we think about longevity. People are living a lot longer today than maybe what our grandparents did. In addition to that, I would say the best strategy to think about is not betting on when I'm going to die. It's betting on how long you're going to live and betting that you're going to live for the long run.
Right.
Last thing you want to do is make a decision that says, hey, I'm going to spend all my money because I'm not going to live past age 75. And then all of a sudden you're sitting across the table from your financial advisor at age 76 and you're out of money. So when you're looking at that, you want to develop a plan based upon that money's going to last a long time, not making decisions where, in this example, when you take Social Security, you're facing a lifetime penalty for drawing early. So another big risk, I think, when people are deciding what is a good withdrawal strategy.
Yeah, thank you. I was just kind of wondering on that because I don't do what you do, but, when I see longevity, and I know I have a lot of people ask me questions about Social Security, the segments that we've already had, it's probably more important today than ever before on the proper strategy for Social Security and when to draw that. And we've talked about that in several other shows, and those are always available on our podcast and YouTube videos. But, it's hard to tell. Nobody really knows, and like you said, I'm betting on you living, and let's not run out of money. In 76, sitting here wondering what are we going to do.
Yeah, I think the last one that I'd hit on is, when we're talking about what are the risks associated with retirement, is what is called sequence of return risk. So sequence of a return risk is something that people that are, again, within 5 years of retirement or just moving into retirement really need to pay attention to. It's this type of environment that, can catch people off guard. And what sequence of return risk is talking about is, the order and the timing of poor investment returns and how they can have a big impact on how long your retirement savings last. And if we look at it, a lot of people will set up what's called a pro rata withdrawal, meaning they'll sell off a little bit of their investments each and every month from their stock market or bond account, maybe from their variable annuity. But if you have a year like this year where the market's going down, what happens is you're forced to sell off more and more of your same shares to get the same amount of income. You're negative compounding your account. You're accelerating the risk of outliving your money. When I served in the Marine Corps, one of the things that they taught us is always have a backup plan.
Sure.
Have a plan B in place. So if you're listening, you need to have a backup plan in place. Make sure that you have money set aside for those down years in a market, and also utilizing things like circuit breakers so you don't go significantly down, because that sequence of return is another big risk that people need to learn about when they're looking at the different risks associated with retirement.
And of course, we can't control when the markets are going to see their ups and their downs as it pertains to your retirement. But as we've said many times here on the show, it is all about controlling what you can control. Have a plan in place. Go ahead and take a look at the independent income system. Just Google it. It's the top result there. You can also find out more about it on the website, Americasretirementheadquarters.com. And while you're there, you can go ahead and schedule a time to speak with the team at the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates. Start controlling what you can control with a proper plan. Americasretirementheadquarters.com, or give a call, 419-794-3030.